Okay. So okay. So good afternoon all. Today I'll be handling your class. Your biology sir is on leave. He's having some health issues. Okay. So we will discuss some of the topics in plant growth and development. Okay. So what we are going to discuss in this plant growth and development? Yesterday already some of the topics have been discussed, or in the previous class some of the topics regarding this plant growth and development have been already discussed. So today we'll be starting with the questions on it. Okay, and the question here is typical growth curve in a plant is. So how the typical growth curve will be in the plants? Will it be a linear, stair-step shaped, or a parabolic shaped, or the sigmoid shape? Okay, so use the chat box and give me the answer. Okay. Yes, Asmin given the answer. Very good, correct. So the correct answer here is the typical growth always will be the sigmoid curve. So you might have studied about the sigmoid curve, right? So I'll tell you like how exactly the sigmoid curve once again in the today's class, that is in the growth rate. So whenever we are studying about a growth rate, how to know the growth rate or how the growth can be increased. Okay. Yes. So growth rate is growth of a plant per unit time. How do we measure the growth? Growth of plant per unit time. Okay. So how it will be this time? Growth of a plant per unit time is called as a growth rate. This growth rate can be offered two ways. One is it can be a arithmetic growth or the geometric growth. So what is this arithmetic growth and geometric growth? Let us see. Arithmetic growth means, let's say there is a one plant cell. Okay. So this plant cell, like this is a meristematic cell. You all know meristematic cell. What do you mean by meristematic cell? What is the speciality of this meristematic cell? Can I just know in the chat box? What is the speciality of meristematic cells in the plants? Why does the plant require a meristematic cell? Okay. So meristematic cell, which has the capacity to divide continuously. Okay, so as it is having a capacity to divide continuously, what it will do, it is going to add many cells to the plants. So whenever it is adding a many cells to the plants, the plant growth will be increased, right? The plant length will be increased. So length or girth, anything can be increased. So now let us take a one meristematic cell which undergoes the division. Okay, which is undergoing the division. One is going to give us the two cells. Okay, out of these two cells, one cell will become a differentiated. Let's say one cell will be the matured cell. It will undergo like some functions like parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma cell happen. Okay, there is now we have only one cell with this, right? So now this one cell, what happens? This one meristematic cell is going to again divide as a two, and this permanent cell will be as it is. Now out of these two, again one more will be coming the permanent cell. One cell will be remaining as a one cell will be remaining as what? Meristematic cell. So here what is happening in every growth or in every time, one cell, a gradual increase in the number of cells are happening, right? So if the number of cells are increasing gradually, then if we are plotting a graph for this, okay, if we are plotting a graph for this, let's say this is the time and this is the height. Y-axis we are taking a height and x-axis we are taking a time. So how the growth will be? First one cell, then one cell, and second cell will be the permanent cell, and then 3 cells. 2 cells are permanent, 1 cell has been increased, and then like this. This is what the linear growth. What do you call this as? Linear growth of plant. Okay, growth rate is per unit time. What is the growth of a plant is called as a growth rate. Rate means we all know with respect to time we will be talking the rate. Okay. So linear growth means what? Linear graph if we are getting, which shows that the growth is a arithmetic growth. So steady growth of a plant or the gradual growth of a plant, which always shows us the arithmetic growth. Let us say one more is there, that is a geometric growth. Geometric growth of a plant. Geometric growth means what? Let's say there is a one cell, meristematic cell, which undergoes a 2, and these 2 cells again undergoes and forms a 4 daughter cells. So from here 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, like that the number of cells are increasing very quickly. Okay, if we are plotting a graph for this, how it will be? Initially from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and suddenly the number going to increase to 16, 52. Then what happens? After some time, there are some limiting factors. The plant cannot grow more than that, or the cells cannot grow more than that because of that limiting factor. So what it is going to happen? It will stop its growth. So this growth, again y-axis which has a height and x-axis which has a time. So this growth which has given the S shape, this graph is called as a sigmoid growth. What do you call this as? Sigmoid graph, right? Sigmoid growth curve you can see. Here what is going to happen is the number of cells will be increased suddenly or at a time. Then these cells starts to differentiate and then forms a permanent cell. This is what a geometric growth. So is that clear? Growth rate, which means the growth of a plant per a unit time, we will be calling as a growth rate. Okay, in that we have a 2 types of growth rates. Those are arithmetic growth and a geometric growth. Arithmetic growth means there will be a 1 cell. This 1 cell is going to divide as a 2 cells. Out of these 2 cells, one will become a specialized. Specialized, which means we all know it cannot divide again. Now we are left with only 1 cell, which is going to be divided. Now this 1 cell will give a 2 cells. Out of these 2 cells also, 1 cell will be the specialized, one again be acting as a meristematic cell. So like that, in each and every stage, a cell can give only 1 extra cell, right? So this gives a gradual growth of a plant, which is going where we are going to get a linear growth. Okay. Yes. So if we are writing the formula for this linear growth, let me write. Just a minute. This is what is happening. Okay, so let me write with the white color only because, yes, I got it now. Okay, so the linear growth curve formula will be LT, which is equals to LO plus RT. So this is R, okay. So what do you mean by LT, which is the length of a plant or the growth of a plant? Length of a plant at a given time. Okay, I said no, per unit time. Length of a plant at a given time. LO means length of a plant initially or at the initial time. And then R for growth rate, T for time. So this is how we can know the growth rate if the plant is growing like a linear growth or plant is having a linear growth. If the plant is having a sigmoid curve, so in the sigmoid curve, we are going to have a WT, okay, which is the size of a plant at a given time, sorry, which is equals to W naught, which means the size of a plant at the initial time, multiplied by, just a minute, multiplied by e power RT. So here WT means size of a plant at a given time, and W naught size of a plant at initial time, multiplied by E, which is a base of log or base of natural log, and R for the growth rate, T for time period. Okay, so this is the difference between linear growth and the sigmoid growth. And finally, we are going to understand the growth rate by this way. Okay, how much the plant has been grown, how much the plant has been grown, and whether the plant is having a linear growth or sigmoid growth, everything we are going to understand by this. Is it clear? Give a thumbs up if it is clear. Yes, give a thumbs up please quickly so that we can continue. Just a minute. Yes, Asmin. Yeah, yes, Asmin, correct? Am I pronouncing correctly? Yes, just tell me if it is wrong. Okay. So here, what is happening? Difference between these two. Ultimately, we are going to study what is the growth of a plant at a given time. Okay, but here we can see the equation difference, which shows that arithmetic growth, which is a very slow and a gradual growth, right? So here we are not going to mention many things, just adding the initial growth along with the growth rate and the time. But here we are multiplying, which means the growth is geometric. Are you understanding? Did you get the point? Yes. Okay. So now let us talk about some more elements which are required, or the conditions required for this growth. Which means what? Let us say if any plant is growing or any organism is growing, there should be some particular conditions or the essential elements for the growth. And those conditions are here as follows. One is oxygen. Yes, already it is there, right? And second one is water. And third is nutrients. Nutrients are required. And fourth one is the optimum temperature. Optimum temperature, which is a required temperature. Okay, optimum temperature. And hormones, which are called as a plant hormones, can also called as phytohormones. Okay, and then the next one, which is the light. These are all the 6 essential elements which are responsible or which are required for the plant growth. Okay, now let us see one by one why these are required, why these are essential, we can say. Okay. Yeah. So why the oxygen is required for the plant growth? Why this is required? Because the plant always requires a ATP whenever it grows, and that ATP will be synthesized by the aerobic respiration, right? Aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, you're going to study in the chapter called respiration. There you might have studied like ATP, which is synthesized by the breakdown of glucose or breakdown of the elements which are present, right? So that ATP will be formed in the presence of oxygen. So oxygen is considered one of the most important elements for the growth. And next, why water is essential? Water is essential for the photosynthesis, and from this photosynthesis, the carbohydrates will be produced. So indirectly, the carbohydrates will be helpful for the plant growth. So that is the reason why water is also essential. Okay, and not only photosynthesis, the water is also essential for the growth of a cell. Let's say how. If you all can remember the region of roots, do you all remember the regions of root? So in the root regions, down there will be a root cap, and then meristematic region, and then the region of elongation. So region of elongation, what is going to happen in the meristematic cell? There won't be any vacuole. Okay, so whenever the cell is moving to the region of elongation, the vacuole starts to grow. The vacuole starts to elongate. That is because of the water. Okay, so vacuole elongation or the cell growth by vacuole elongation is dependent on the water. Okay, now we are talking about the nutrients. Actually, there are two types of nutrients are required. One is a micronutrients. And one more is macronutrients. Okay, micronutrients and macronutrients, which are helpful in the synthesis of protoplasm in the cell, right? So that is why these nutrients are also important. And why this optimum temperature is required? Can anybody tell why the optimum temperature is required for the plants to grow? Yes, I'm just waiting for the answers in the chat box. Can you just tell me why the optimum temperature is required? Okay, I'll tell you. There are enzymes, many enzymes in the plants. These enzymes will be helpful in the cell growth, plant growth, and other metabolic activities. Okay, so but these enzymes will work only if they get an optimum temperature. So optimum temperature is very much essential for the enzymatic activity. Okay. And of course, the phytohormones, which are the plant growth regulators, which are going to regulate the plant growth. If the plant wants to grow more, phytohormones should be there. If the plant is not growing, which means phytohormones are less there. Okay, so like how do you say the complaint, right? This phytohormone is like that plant growth regulators. Next is light. Light is also essential for the photosynthesis. Light is also essential for the photosynthesis. So is it clear? These are all the essential elements which are required for the plant growth. Out of those, oxygen, water, nutrients, optimum temperature, phytohormones, and the light. These are all the essential and required conditions for the plant growth. Okay, so now let us talk about the three terms which are called as a differentiation, dedifferentiation, and a redifferentiation. Anyhow, we are talking about a cell division, right? Like one cell is dividing into two, two into four. But in between, you might have studied the same terms in the cell chapter. Okay, let me tell you what is this differentiation, dedifferentiation, and a redifferentiation. Okay, now there is a meristematic cell which starts to divide. One is going to divide into two cells. Okay, so after some time, what happens? This meristematic cell stop dividing, or this meristematic cell specially escape from the cell cycle, which is going to escape from cell cycle. Okay, so once it is escaping from the cell cycle, it cannot divide again, which means the cell becoming a mature or the cell becoming a permanent cell. Now, This process is called as a differentiation. Easy. It is easy. Now let's say there is a cell which is going to divide continuously 1 into 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, like that it is dividing. At a particular moment, there is a one cell which stop or which escape from the cell cycle. Remember the word escape, because in some of the exams, sometimes what they will ask is cell differentiation means cell will be escape from the cell cycle, stop from the cell cycle, or pause the cell cycle. This is what the option they will ask. So you have to write escape from the cell cycle. Okay. So that is called as a differentiation, which means the cell, instead of dividing, it will get a meristematic activity. Sorry, it will become a mature by stopping the meristematic activity. This is called as a differentiation. Okay. Next is dedifferentiation. So what do you mean by this dedifferentiation? Okay, let me take one example. In the stem meristem is there, right? So first, what is going to happen? Stem meristem will be dividing continuously. At a particular time, some of the cells will become a differentiation, which means they will escape from the cell cycle, and they will becoming a parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma, and many differential cells. So that process we are calling as a differentiation. Now what happens? Plant has been grown completely height. Now the plant has to grow or increase its girth. Okay, that is called a secondary growth. During secondary growth time, what happens? Wait. During secondary growth, what is going to happen here is, let's say there is a parenchyma cell. Okay, parenchyma cell which has been already escaped from the cell cycle, where the differentiation has happened. Okay, so now this parenchyma will get the meristematic activity again, which is going to get a meristematic activity again. Meristematic activity. This process is called a differentiation. Okay, it is easy. Let's say there is a cell cycle. Okay, there is a cell cycle like this. Now what happened? One cell will be escaping from the cell cycle. That process is called as a differentiation. This escaped cell again will get a meristematic activity. This is called as a dedifferentiation. Okay, so especially this dedifferentiation will be helpful during the secondary growth. Now what happens? Parenchyma cell got a meristematic activity. Once the girth of a plant has been increased properly, now this parenchyma cell is going to be escaped again back from the cell cycle. Okay, so this process is called as a redifferentiation. Is it clear? Differentiation, dedifferentiation, and redifferentiation. Differentiation means where the cell is going to escape. Okay, so cell is going to escape from the cell cycle, and here the escaped cell will come back again. Will come back again to the cell cycle, which means, let's say you're studying anyone. Okay, there is a one person who is working something. Okay, so he is going to leave the job for some days. Okay, that process is differentiation. And after some days, he'll come back to the same job, dedifferentiation, and again he'll leave the job, redifferentiation. Here, cell, usually it was dividing, that was its work, and it will escape from the cell division. Okay, or it will escape from the cell cycle. That process is a differentiation. And after some days, due to some other reasons, like for the secondary growth, the cell will come back to the cell cycle, which means cell will regain its meristematic activity, which is called a dedifferentiation. And then after the proper growth, once differentiation, come back as a redifferentiation, and again it will escape. This is the redifferentiation. That's it. Is it clear to every one of you? Is it clear? Please give the thumbs up. If it is clear. Yes. Okay. This is about a differentiation, de-differentiation, and redifferentiation. Okay. There is a last one small concept, that is a plant development. Okay. So plant development, which has a some of the factors which will be controlling the plant development. Okay. So already we have studied the external factors, which are like a light. This color will not be visible. Light, temperature. Okay, just a minute. Light, temperature, oxygen, water, and the nutrients. Okay, these are all from the outside. Out of the plant, from the outside, plant is going to get, which will be helpful for the growth. Okay, from the inside, there are some plants which will also helpful for the plant growth. Those are called as the intrinsic factors. One is it can happen genetically, and one more is by the plant growth hormones or the plant growth regulators. Okay, so today we are going to study, or in this chapter especially, we are going to study about the plant growth regulators. And these plant growth regulators are very small and simple molecules, but that will regulate the plant growth. Okay, regulating. I'm saying here regulating. I'm not saying the inhibiting, right? Or I'm not saying it will promote the growth. It can regulate, which means it can increase or it can decrease, or it can promote or it can stop. Right. So that is why, based on this, the plant growth regulators have been divided into two types: plant growth promoters, plant growth inhibitors. Plant growth promoters, in the sense which are going to promote the growth of a plant. Examples: auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins. Plant growth inhibitors, in the sense which are going to stop the plant growth, like abscisic acid and the ethylene. Remember the examples which are important. Plant growth promoters are auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, and plant growth inhibitors are abscisic acid and ethylene. Here you can see this. Plant growth promoting activities like a cell division, enlargement, tropic growth, pattern information, flowering, fruiting, seed formation. These are all comes under the plant growth promoting activities. Okay, so and for this, which are going to promote, those are called as a plant growth promoters: auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins. And next is plant growth inhibitors, that growth inhibiting activities like a dormancy and abscission. Okay, which respond to the wounds, stress of biotic and abiotic origin. Those are examples like the abscisic acid and the ethylene. Okay. Right. So here we are, from next class, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about each one plant growth hormones like auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, abscisic acid, and the ethylene. These are the 5 plant growth regulators where we are going to talk about in the next classes. Okay, so is it clear so far what we have studied? Let me just tell you. One is the plant growth rate we have studied. Okay, so growth rate, which is of 2 types: arithmetic growth and geometric growth. Arithmetic growth, which gives a linear growth curve, and geometric growth, which gives a sigmoid growth curve. Okay. And for this plant growth, there are some essential elements and the conditions like oxygen, water, nutrients, optimum temperature, phytohormones, and light. Out of this, from the next class, we're going to study in detail about phytohormones. Okay, so just keep this in your mind. Regarding phytohormones, we are going to study. Right, in this phytohormones, we have 2 types: plant growth promoters, plant growth inhibitors. Next, we have studied about 3 terminologies like a differentiation, de-differentiation, and redifferentiation. differentiation where the cell is going to escape from the cell cycle. That process is called a differentiation. And if the cell is, once the cell escaped and coming back to the cell cycle, this process is called as a de-differentiation. Okay. And ultimately, that cell will go back again, escape. Again, it will escape from the cell cycle, which is a redifferentiation. Okay. So where the differentiation is going to happen, redifferentiation is going to happen, you can study this. That's it for the today's class. And if you're having any doubts, please ask me in the chat box. Any doubts? Any doubts? No? Yes. Then we'll meet in the next class. Till your sir comes, I'll be handling the biology classes. Like 2-3 days, I'll be handling the biology classes because the one who was handling the biology classes, the sir got a little bit. Yes, thank you. He got some health issues. So once he's back, then he'll be handling. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, JNB Mahi. Bye bye.